Good morning, hello, and welcome to another mad video. No, it's not. It's a creative, daily creative with me, Charlotte Burns, yours truly. Thank you so much for joining me and watching. If you're watching on replay, hashtag replay, I'd really appreciate that. If you're watching on YouTube, these videos do go up to YouTube, even though I record them onto my Facebook page as a live. Give me a thumbs up on YouTube and let me know. My hands are clenched like this because currently it is June, it is cold, it is winter, and winter is putting on a show for us. But the beautiful thing about June with Close to My Heart is they have a massive sale on heaps and heaps of stamps and tons of Stampin' Thin Cut bundles. So during the month of June, I'm going to come to you live almost every day, around about 10 o'clock on my Facebook page, to show you the ins and outs, ups and downs, and rounds, okay, I had to say it, of stamps and all things stamping. So the last couple of days I've given you an introduction to stamping. If you've missed those videos, then please check out my Facebook page. They will end up getting uploaded to YouTube as well. But today I want to show you how to get some tones out of your stamps. Now, I'm not talking about the musical tones, even though that was the title of my video. No, I'm talking about tones of colour. Let me show you what I mean. So I've just picked a random stamp. I haven't actually picked a random stamp. I've picked this stamp here. I love this type of stamp because it's a messy stamp without being messy. So you can make your page look really messy without me getting messy. It's called Brushstrokes, and the code, in case you want to look it up, is B1799. This is on special this month, so if you want to grab it, do. It will be special and available all through the month of June. Close to My Heart manufacture stamps in-house, so they won't run out of this one. It's normally more expensive than it is. It's normally $20, but they've reduced it. And I did have the price on the tip of my tongue, and it's not coming to me. But anyway, check it out on my website. Or if you're not one of my customers, check it out on your own website, if you're a maker, or your maker's website. So I have my stamp, I have my blocks, I have an assortment of sizes, I have my chamois, I have some scratch paper. Underneath my paper, I do have my Versamat, which is already upside down, and then I've picked a bunch of colours. I need to make some get well cards because there are quite a few people around me that are sick at the moment. I need to find one of my stamp sets. It's really good. It says, I hope you get well soon. Until then, keep a safe distance. But when I find that one, I'll use it. Anyway, I've decided I'm going to go for a rainbow effect again, because this is going to help me show you the best use of creating tones. Now, I'm not talking about blending colors or anything like that today. No, I'm just showing you this is a really simple technique that you may or may not have done anyway. It's also called generational stamping. But often what we think of when we do generational stamping is we think of generations going down. So we think of going from our base color, one, down through to a lighter color. Today, I'm going to show you something a little different. And also because I'm a bit of a, I was going to say something, but possibly not really suitable for YouTube and Facebook. So I won't say that. I'm a little bit tight. I don't like to waste ink, which I'll explain as I go. Now, I've mentioned before in some of my videos, early days, that I do like to keep a stack of these already cut, and this fits perfectly on top of a card. So this is one of our cards, and this is a card topper. It's trimmed down 1/4 of an inch, so it then gives 1/8 of an inch border. And these are just handy if I want to play around with doing stuff like I'm about to do. So I've got my card toppers, and I need a couple, and again, you'll see why in a minute. I do need a couple, and I'm just going to be using these, couple of these here, because doing generational stamping, which is one of the things I'm showing today, is best seen when you're doing, when you're using a solid type of stamp. I can use the words, but for you to see it on the video, it's better off me using them. Now, I did have a look at these and decide that I was going to use this one. So I'm just going to peel that off the carrier sheet, pop that over to the side. I'll stick this onto one of my blocks. Now, I think I decided that I needed my 2x2 block to stick this on. And because I'm going to be stamping this way, I want my block to go like this, but it's not going to fit exactly on there. So I can always turn the stamp and put the block on a bit of an angle. Doesn't really matter as long as it goes on and fits on your block. Hopefully I'm making sense. All right, I'm going to make a rainbow. So here I have my colors. I used these colors a couple of days ago. I made an amazing rainbow page. Now I'm going to make a rainbow card. Candy apple, nectarine, lemonade, clover, Capri, sapphire, Sapphire, and grape. I crack myself up sometimes. If you didn't catch those colors, red, orange, yellow, green, blue. I'm calling this indigo and violet. Okay, it's not, but they're the colors of the rainbow. Now I'm going to learn from last time and lay these out and not stamp in the wrong one. So red, orange, yellow. I'm going to just start with red, orange, yellow. This should be able to give me some, I'll give you some idea of what I'm doing. So I've seasoned my stamp. Even though I know it's not a brand new stamp, I still like to season my stamps. And I'm going to pick up some ink. So tap, tap, tap. Now, because it is a solid stamp, great. I haven't silenced my phone. Let me just quickly do that. Because it is a solid stamp, what I need to do is tap, tap, tap. And then I also need to do some swishing. That will pick up more ink onto my stamp. So I go swish, lift, swish, lift, swish, lift, and then tap, tap, tap again. All right. So I've got that. And say, for instance, I want, let me just show you. Okay, now I actually want the stamp to go that way just because I've decided I do. I'm going to stamp it off the page a bit. Okay, so there's one. Then if I stamp that again, it's called second generation. If I hold them up against each other, you'll see the second one is a bit lighter. Now if I grab another piece of paper, keeping in mind that has now sat for a couple of seconds. If I grab another piece of paper and I do it again, this gives me third generation. So we go lighter again. Now with some colors you can go fourth, fifth, sixth. With the darker colors you can go lots and lots of generational stamping, but I'm only going to go down to third because some of my colors won't go past third generation. So I'm doing third generation, but then I want to show you something else, and that is that I can actually do, I'm going to grab yet another piece of paper. So I can do my first generation, and then I can come back and do a second one over the top. Now, I don't care if it's not matchy-matchy. I'm actually going to do a third just because I can, because I'm just trying to prove a point. So here we have first generation, second generation, third generation, but this one here is even darker. It's the same ink, exactly the same ink. It's darker because I've used it multiple times. So for instance, if I wanted to do a couple of cards with second generation stamps, what I might choose to do is go ink on here, and then hang on, let me just grab this one, and then second generation. Now there we have two second generations, and rather than waste my ink by just splotting it off onto some scratch paper, I'm actually making a really dark image on one of the cards. Does that make sense? So we've gone first generation, two second generations, a third generation. So there's generational stamping. If I want to do multiple cards, so say I'm doing a few Get Well cards, which I am, and I want to do, I need to do a few second generation stamps, rather than just blotting it off on paper, why not save it and actually put it onto another piece of card that I can use on another project? So now I can stamp it off, and realistically I could actually use that on a card as well. Stamp that off and clean it, and let me show you with orange, because there's other things that you can do when you're doing tones. So I'm just going to, all I'm doing there is stamping that so that I make sure this is completely dry. So I've done my red. I'm now going to go to orange, which is Nectarine. So I've used candy apple. Now I'm using Nectarine. Really should use the correct terminology, shouldn't I? And I want to do my first generation. Notice I move my papers away so that this is as close to my squishy as possible. So first generation, just checking, first generation, second generation, get rid of that second generation, and third generation. So there's first, second, and third generation. So you can make the tones go lighter, but let's make them go darker. So I want to ink it up again, and we go first generation, ink it up again, second generation. No, shouldn't call it second generation. So that's one, that's two, and then I'm going to do it again, and I want to do second generation on this one. And we're now matchy-matchy with that one. So that's first, that's second, and that's third generation. The other thing to note as well is when you're doing this, you'll find that the ink, as it dries and it soaks into the paper, it goes lighter as well. So that's just something to be aware of. So if I were to come back and stamp another first generation with, actually I might even do it with red. So let's just smack that. I don't want to waste that, so I'm going to smack that on top of that one there and make that really dark. Oh, clean that off. And you may notice that I twist. I don't know, I've just found that if you twist it, it also cleans it a bit more, especially when you're using the intense black. I'll give my opinion about it, intense black. I personally don't like it. It stains my stamp. I mean, look, that has stained my stamp as well, and that's okay. You'll see in a second when I use my yellow that it's not going to transfer into the yellow. Intense black won't transfer into the yellow, but it just makes it difficult to see through. Intense black is a great ink for other things, and I will be talking about that down the track this month. But for me, personally, I just stick with the regular black. All right, so let's come in with the yellow or lemonade. Lemonade, a great drink. So we're going to do first generation. Second generation. And then you'll notice with my third generation in lemonade, it's not as dark as the others. So this one, you'd get to third generation, you'd be lucky to get to fourth. And then I'm going to clean that off. Excuse my sniffles, the cold tends to make me sniffle. And if I come back and stamp with the candy apple, the red, on my last piece of paper, let me just show you. Can you see that that's darker than that? This is first generation, but because this is wet and this is dry, it looks darker. So don't be fooled, for want of a better term, when you're doing your stamping. If you stamp again and it looks darker, if it's wet, it will look darker, and then as it dries, it gets lighter. So that was one of the things I wanted to show you. The other thing I wanted to show you was, if I stamp, and I'm just going to do red all the way along this page, and I know exactly who I can give this card to once I figure out what I do with it. So this one I simply touch down and lift it off. If I now touch down and lift off really quickly, there's a slight difference in colour, just slight, but it will give you a lighter colour if you just touch down and lift off. If, however, again, inking it up, so I'm inking it up exactly the same every time. If I touch down and hold it on, allow that ink to seep into the paper, it should, in theory, give me an even darker colour. Now you can't see so much, but if I went to do a second generation, and this is where I do need a little bit more paper. So these three, there's not much of a difference, but let me show you. I'm going to do that again. So this one is, we're just going to touch it off and then press on here. So this is a second generation, just with a very quick touch off on here. That's second generation. Then if we do a standard touch, that's a second generation, and it's lighter. If we do a third touch, and this time we actually hold it on for a long time, and then we do a second generation, see the difference in that? So there's lots of things you can do. This is just second generation each time, but depending on how much ink soaks into the paper gets taken off the stamp will determine your generations and your depth. So you can go lighter, you can go darker. Look how dark that's gone now. This is our first generation, and then you multiple stamp over the top and it just gets darker. So just because I have to finish off this. Okay, so let's just do this. All right, there's my long one. And also, if you go off the page like that, I can see that that stamp now has got a line on it because I went off the page, so the ink didn't actually soak off onto this the same. Okay, so that's just something else. So there's lots of ways that you can get different colors. You can do generational stamping. You can stamp just slightly and then not much at all. You can stamp multiple times in the same spot. So this is just, that's holding it for, so just touching it on and then lifting it off. Sorry. That one is just doing a normal sort of maybe a 1 second and then off. This is touching on, lifting off. This is holding down. This again is just touching on and lifting off, and so on and so forth. This is second generation after touch on and lift off. This is after touch on, hold and lift off. And this is touch on, hold for a while and lift off. So that's second generation. And then these are first generation ink stamp. Get that out of the way. Second generation. Where'd my other one go? There. Second generation ink, 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 stamp, stamp, second generation, and third generation, not inking again and stamping for a third time. So there you can see I can create different tones. Let me bring in my dark one again. My dark one. Different tones depending on how long you hold your stamp to your paper, and also how many times you stamp over the top. So if you have to do, or if you want to do second generation stamps, don't waste the ink. Just grab another card topper, grab a scrap piece of cardstock that you might use on something else, and stamp off on that, and then stamp onto the project that you're doing. Also, if you stamp multiple times in the same spot, if I have to do generational stamping, and I stamp multiple times in the same spot, if you can imagine, this is going to leave a layer of ink. So this second generation, similar to this one, again is going to be darker. So that's just different ways of getting different tones onto your stamping. I'm going to finish these off, post them out to some people. If you'd like a card from me, let me know. Send me a message. I have a ton that I need to send out. I haven't been sending cards for a while, so I'd love to send some happy mail out. All right, lovelies, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you've learned something, been inspired. Give me a thumbs up if you have. Share the video if you're feeling the love. And I wish you all a very good day. Stay safe, keep crafting, and bye for now.